Let me tell you, nobody ever expects life to come full circle in the messiest, most poetic way possible. But that's exactly what happened to me and my family, and I promise this story has more turns in a hospital hallway at midnight you ever hear a story so wild you have to ask yourself, is this karma, fate, or just the universe with a twisted sense of humor? Yeah, that's where I found myself, not long ago, with a heart full of regret, hands trembling, and a future as cloudy as the morphine haze in the ICU. So here's the deal. 30 years ago, back when we still had our hair and our optimism, my wife Martha and I made a choice that would haunt us, shape us, and eventually nearly save us. We gave away a baby girl, a beautiful little thing with deep brown skin and eyes that made you want to believe in miracles, because we thought the world, or maybe just our tiny, gossip-soaked town, wasn't ready for the sight of a white couple raising a black baby. We said it was about giving her the heritage we couldn't offer, but if I'm being honest, it was mostly about fear of losing my job, of being cut off by family, of Martha getting side-eyed every time she went to the grocery store. We said we didn't have kids. It was a lie that grew so old, we almost believed it ourselves. Cut to 3 decades later, Martha and I are sitting in a hospital room, our lives literally beeping away on monitors, the air thick with the smell of antiseptic and anxiety. Some freak chemical fire wrecked our kidneys, and we're both on the national donor list, odds worse than winning the lottery. The doctor, a polite woman named Peterson, asked if we had any family who might get tested kids, siblings. Martha's eyes went glassy, and I just shook my head, that old lie crawling out like a bad habit. But as soon as we got home, the truth started gnawing at us, sharp as it was 30 years ago. "Do you ever think about her?" Martha asked, voice so quiet it barely rattled the autumn leaves outside. Every day I wanted to say, but I just kept driving. See, Martha wasn't just any surrogate. She carried that baby for her best friend, Yvette, a black woman who couldn't have kids, whose DNA and husband's DNA made up the miracle child. But fate, or tragedy, stepped in. Yvette and James died 3 months before the due date. Car accident, no family left. And there we were, holding a newborn we had no idea how to keep safe, not from love, but from everything else. So we let her go, named her Hope before we signed the papers. And for 30 years, every picture on our mantle was a lie by omission. Now, with our days probably numbered, we decide it's time to look for her. The adoption had been open, so we had to name Kira Johnson, now 30. Martha, always the braver one, started Googling. A dozen Kira Johnsons popped up, but then, bam, a news article. Photo of a black woman with a stethoscope, big bright smile, headline, Dr. Kira Johnson, pioneering nephrologist at Cedar Ridge Medical Center. Yeah, a kidney specialist. Irony's a cruel joke. The kicker? Cedar Ridge is 2 hours away. Next thing you know, our hospital calls to say our case is being assigned to a new specialist ER. Kira Johnson. I swear, you can't write this stuff. Martha's hand was ice cold when we sat in that waiting room. The kind of nervous that makes you wish you could just turn invisible. When they finally called her in, Daniel begged off, said it was better if she went first, too much all at once and all that. I watched her disappear down the hallway, and my heart was in my throat. Now, Kira, she walks in tall, braids neat, that same unmistakable calm Yvette had, but with a fire in her eyes and a wedding ring that gleamed when she shook Martha's hand. "I've reviewed your file, Mrs. Winters," she said, all professional, but Martha could barely hear her. I knew she was looking for every trace of that baby we gave up for a dimple, a smile, something to grab onto. At some point, Martha just blurted out, "You ever think about having kids?" And Kira just smiled, polite, saying, "Not yet, but my husband and I hope to start a family soon." By the end of that appointment, the air was heavy with things unsaid, and Kira told Martha she wanted to meet me. Too said it would help coordinate our care. So there I was, shaking the hand of my daughter for the first time in 30 years, and every muscle in my body just failed me. "She's remarkable," I managed. I wanted to say more, but what can you say? We didn't tell her then. We weren't sure if it was the right thing, not with our health failing and our motives looking as selfish as they come. Weeks passed, more tests, More time spent sitting across from Kira, watching her work, hearing about her adoptive family in Chicago. Theodore and Regina, both teachers, both good people. She talked about working with underprivileged communities, about wanting to make sure minority patients had fair access to transplants. We missed everything: birthdays, heartbreaks, all of it. But as life would have it, crisis hit again. One appointment ended abruptly. Kira's adoptive father, Theodore, collapsed at home, rushed to the ER, possible stroke. The hospital turned chaotic. Martha and I, desperate to be of use, waited in the ER even though we had no right. The universe, meanwhile, was cooking up one more twist. Kira finally emerged from the back, face drawn, exhaustion and fear written all over her. We tried to offer comfort. She thanked us, a bit confused by our presence. Then, with that same clinical tone, she told us she'd found something strange in Martha's blood, work something genetic. "We need to talk," she said. The next day, her office felt less like a doctor's den and more like a confessional. Kira, standing tall, told us about the genetic Markera rare variant, almost impossible to match unless there's a blood connection. She'd seen it only once before in her own DNA. "I ran the comparative analysis," she said, voice trembling for the first time. "We share multiple genetic markers, strong enough to suggest a biological relationship." Martha cracked first. "You're our daughter," she whispered. We told her everything: the surrogacy, the accident, the reasons we gave her up. Kira listened in silence, then pushed her birth certificate across the desk. "It says Martha Winters as my birth mother, father unknown," she said, anger flaring. "There's no record of any surrogacy." The room froze. "It was a private agreement," I said, feeling every inch the coward. "The news about our needing transplants, yeah, that landed hard." "Quite the coincidence you searched for me when you needed a donor," she said, eyes narrowing. "We insisted we hadn't known life had just thrown us together by chance, through her hospital. But she'd heard enough." "I have to recuse myself," she said, turning clinical again. "Dr. Patel will take over your care." Before we left, she asked, "Did my real parents know?" Martha told her the truth. Yvette and James had died before Kira was born, but they'd been excited, had written letters, built a nursery. "I have them," Martha said, "if you ever want to see." That could have been the end, but the universe wasn't finished. Kira texted Martha later her adoptive father had gone into sudden kidney failure. 3 people, 3 kidneys failing, all tied together by this tangled web. Kira called us in. We met in the hospital cafeteria, and now there's no pretense, just desperation and science and family bleeding into one. She told us about the genetic variant, a rare mutation common in Black families with West African ancestry, one that, when triggered by environmental toxins, leads to catastrophic kidney failure. We realized that both Martha and Kira carried it. The kicker? My DNA test confirmed I was Kira's biological father, a bombshell that sent Martha and I reeling, marriage tested in a way we never expected. It turned out Kira's adoptive mom, Regina, was Yvette's cousin. That's how they found Kira, how the adoption happened. And somehow, Martha and Yvette were related, 2 cousins or half-sisters who never knew it, a secret lost in the shuffle of small-town life, of generations hiding their scars. The solution? Kira wanted to offer her own stem cells experimental procedure, risky as hell, but the only shot at saving 3 lives. But she was pregnant, and you don't mess around with that. Martha came up with an idea: our other daughter, Emily, a freshman in college. Maybe she could be a match. She drove down, got tested, and the science lined up. Emily could donate, no risk to pregnancy, and with hope for all of us. I'll tell you, watching my daughters when I only just met, hold hands, preparing to save their families, that's a kind of redemption I never thought I'd see. And there was still more tangled, bittersweet joy when Kira decided, if she had a girl, to name her Yvette Martha, after both her mothers. When Theodore finally woke, healthy, surrounded by both his wives and daughters, the air felt lighter than it had in decades. We gathered in the hospital garden, took our first real family photo, everyone together, history and heartbreak and healing, all tangled up in one impossible shot. If you're still listening, I need to ask, what would you have done? Would you have given up a child to spare them pain, or fought the world for the right to love them openly? When does justice turn into redemption? And when does family cross the line from blood to choice? Drop your thoughts below, because sometimes the hardest stories are the ones that beg us to ask ourselves what family, forgiveness, and home really mean.